This is another Tuesday for a core teaching from my area of specialization. My name is Josephine, and my channel is Learn with Joes, an Academy of Knowledge Economy. On Tuesday like this, I teach a core course from area of my specialization in philosophy of religion and theology. I hold a doctoral degree in theological studies, and I've been teaching on liberation and Black theology. Last Tuesday, I started on Black theology and Black power, especially James Cone, Black theology. I ended promising that this Tuesday, today, I'm going to let you know his theological thoughts on specific biblical doctrines and terms. And that's what we are going to address today. I want you to follow me well. And you know now that even in my slides that I show in the PowerPoint presentation, there are notes there. You can pause to write those notes for you to read further, or you could take a snapshot with your camera or your phone, those notes, as you follow the slides. But before I go on, let's join Learn with Joes. Let me thank you at this point, all my viewers and my subscribers. You have been so good to me. You have encouraged me. And I love some of your feedbacks. And I want you to continue to send me feedback. But please, at the end of each of my video, the description link is very important for you to check and note if there are certain information that are key, that are crucial, that you might need. And moreover, I need your feedback on what to do. I love one feedback I got from one viewer. The person is so elected because he said he had done, either he has done or he's doing a research on the Black theology, especially the one from South Africa. I want you to know that I'm going to address South Africa Black theology, or South Africa Black liberation theology, and apartheid towards the end of this talk. In fact, it's because of the South Africa aspect that I'm going to stress this liberation and Black theology till March. But I will address it. I'm now going into full details because liberation and Black theology, in fact, in some universities, is a department on its own. So it's large. There are volumes and volumes of research and books on them. Also, all I'm giving you are just overview for you. It's a brief to know, understand what liberation theology means, what Black liberation theology means. There are even another aspect of the feminine liberation theology, which I'm not even addressing at all. So if you're interested in it, you could either reach me directly or you can read further on your own. But today, like I said, this is the part B of the Black theology and Black power, especially from James Cone, the founder of Black liberation theology. What he thinks, his thought, theological thought, and sometimes is what I'm going to show today. So join me now as I show you my PowerPoint presentation. All right, theology of Black liberation is still what we're calling, and this is part B of the Black theology and Black power, according to James Cone. I told you from James Cone's writing, interview is belief. He has different, do I want to use description or whatever, different from even those specific doctrines. His thoughts about them. The first one is God. Cone bases much of his liberationist theology on God's deliverance of Israel from oppression under the Egyptians. He says that the consistent theme in Israelite prophecy is Yahweh's concern for the lack of social, economic, and political justice for those who are poor and unwanted in the society. Note 16. This same God, Common argues, is working for the deliverance of oppressed Blacks in 20th century America, because God is helping oppressed Blacks and has identified with them. God himself is spoken of as Black. So Black theology's dominant perspective on God is God in action, delivering the oppressed because of his righteousness, is to be seen not in the transcendent way of Greek philosophy, still inherent among his people. God is immanent because he is met in concrete historical situations of liberation. So it is very similar to the idea of immanence of God in process theology. Indeed, process theologian David Ray Griffin, while recognizing significant differences between process and Black theology, has suggested that process philosophy supports liberation theologians in locating the reality of God's presence and creative activity in this world. That's note 18. Now, Jesus Christ. The Chalcedonian Creed that was promulgated or came to forth in AD 451 affirmed that Christ is truly God. And Cone agrees with this, but adds that the role of Jesus as God incarnate was to liberate the oppressed. Jesus Christ is God himself coming into the very depths of human existence for the sole purpose of striking off the chains of slavery, thereby freeing man from ungodly principalities and powers that hinder his relationship with God. One of the more controversial aspects of Cone's Christology is his view that Jesus was or is Black. The restless American Christ has light skin, very wavy brown hair, and sometimes, wonder of wonders, blue eyes. For whites who find him with big lips and kinking hair is as offensive as it was for the Pharisees to find him patching with tax collectors. But whether whites want to hear it or not, Christ is Black, baby, with all of the features which are so detestable to white society. Emphasis in original. And that's James Cone. One believes it is vital for Black people to view Jesus as Black. It's essential because you've got a lot of white images. In reality, Christ was not white, not European. That's important to the psyche and to the spiritual consciousness of Black people who live in a ghetto and in a white society in which their Lord and Savior look just like people who victimize them. God is whatever color God needs to be to let people know they are not nobodies. They are somebodies. They are somebodies. So Jesus Christ, to James Cone, is Black. For Cone, the resurrection of the Black Jesus, an actual event, symbolizes universal freedom for all who are bound. It is not just a future-oriented hope in heavenly compensation for earthly woes. Instead, it is a hope that focuses on the future to prevent Blacks from tolerating present inequities. Sin and salvation. In Cone's view, sin is a condition of human existence in which mind denies the essence of God's liberating activity as revealed in Jesus Christ. In this view, sin is anything contrary to the oppressed community or its liberation. So salvation for Cone primarily concerns earthly reality, not heavenly hopes. To see the salvation of God is to see this person, i.e. the blacks, rise against the oppressors, demanding that justice becomes a reality now and not tomorrow. Hence, however, Cone often speaks of Jesus as the liberator. In practical terms, he emphasizes the human work of self-liberation among blacks and downplay divine help, which really a little bit contradictory to how sin and salvation is seen in the Bible. The Christian Christological aspects of the Bible is seeing Jesus as the Savior, the Messiah, that saved man from sin and reconcile us back to God. The church. One believes the Black church has played an instrumental role in Black American religious and social life. So it says the Black church was the creation of the Black people whose daily existence was an encounter with white power's overwhelming and brutalizing reality. So for the slaves, it was the sole source of identity and a sense of community. The Black church became the only sphere of the Black experience that was free of white power. Still, Cone believes that since the days of slavery, the Black church has largely capitulated to the demands of white racist society. He argues that Black churches have given up their freedom and dignity to survive. After the Civil War, Black churches became passive in the struggle for civil rights and freedom while carrying favors from the white establishment. This condition, Cone says, has persisted up to the present day, rendering the Black church the lifeless pawn of the status quo. So only faithfulness to the pre-Civil War Black church tradition will issue an exclusive identification with Black power. Cone believes, and he says, that a continued emphasis on Black power is the only hope of the Black church in America. Though Black power as a movement faded after the 1960s, the primary emphasis of the movement, the dignity, freedom, and self-determination of Black people has continued in Cone's theological writings. It is this emphasis that Cone says has been missing in many Black churches. Eschatology. Cone rejects when it terms the white lie that Christianity is primarily concerned with life in the next world. If eschatology means that one believes that God is uninvolved in the sovereignty of man because he's preparing them for another world, then Black theology is not eschatological. Black theology has hope for this life. And that's Cone James. And now when you, and maybe some of you have encountered the book of John Ladd, in Realized and Futuristic Eschatology. You know that when you give your life to Christ, you'll be a believer. You are living a realized eschatology in this world. And the futuristic eschatology is biblical too, where you look forward to seeing Jesus and being with Jesus in heaven, where we have the throne, the white throne judgment, and we have the bema seat of Christ. So eschatology is a term that is so close, it's a specific biblical doctrine. But Cone is saying that if he's not thinking about getting people, he's not thinking about the future, futuristic eschatology. It's more involved in the hope for this particular life and the liberation of the Blacks. Cone asks, what good is there is in the golden crowns, slippers, and white robes, if it means that we have to turn our backs on the pain and suffering of our children, unless the future can become present forcing us to change this world. What significance could eschatology have for Black people who believe their self-determination must become a reality now? On revolution and violence, Cohen defines liberation as the emancipation of Black people from white oppression by whatever means Black people deem necessary. And this definition will seem to allow for violence. Cohen does not advocate an armed revolution against white society, but some violence, he says, seems unavoidable. He points out, the Christian does not decide between violence and non-violence, evil and good, and he decides between the lesser and the greater evil. He must ponder whether revolutionary violence is less or more deplorable than the violence perpetrated by the system. Injustice, slave labor, hunger, and exploitation are all violent forms that must be considered against the cost of revolutionary violence. And that is good for you. And that's why Cohen at times describes sin. Said sin is for you when you're a Black man, you allow yourself to be enslaved and you are not thinking of liberating yourself from that bondage. That is sin to him. So these are the notes that you can read further about Cohen's thoughts on those specific biblical doctrines. You ask Cohen 16 is Cohen on liberation, 17 Wayne House, 18 David Ray Griffin, 19 Cohen Theology, 20 The White Church and the Black Power, 21 Interview by Barbara Reynolds, and 22 Liberation, 23 Liberation, James Cohen, all Cohen. He has written volumes and volumes of books. So you can get his liberationist thoughts from his books. So I've come to the end of today's teaching. And then maybe as a takeover, I laugh because the definition of sin from Cohen's perspective is different from biblical sin. It says sin is when you are in bondage and you refuse to liberate yourself from that bondage, that is sin. That means you must liberate yourself from that bondage, even if it means you have to use violent way. Where Jesus said, when you are slapped on one cheek, turn the right cheek, is the Prince of Peace, and he brings peace to the world. So the peace of Jesus Christ is what I'm living with you this Tuesday. Have a wonderful week. Thank you. Join me on Friday for another interesting, highly interesting Friday tonic. You will find it very sweet. And Tuesday for continuation of the Liberation and Black Theology teaching.